My name is Ruby Lane. I'm 30 years old and live in a small town just outside Boulder, Colorado. If you'd asked me about my family before, I would have shrugged and said, pretty normal, a little biased maybe. But not anymore. After what just happened, I know better than anyone. I was never the chosen one in this family. I was just the shadow beside the shining star my parents proudly called their perfect youngest daughter. Jenna, my younger sister, is 27. She was raised like royalty in real life. Every time she so much as frowned, our house felt like it had been hit by an earthquake. She got everything. A brand new car the day she turned 16, a study abroad trip to Italy just because she wanted the experience, and a group of loud, over-the-top friends my parents still called the future elite. And me? I'm the older sister. The one who had to set an example, make sacrifices, and always understand. When I got a scholarship to a state university, my mom just sighed and said, well, at least we don't have to take out a loan. But when Jenna got accepted into an art school in New York, where tuition costs over $40,000 a year, my dad nearly cried from pride. I used to think, maybe I was just too average, not dazzling enough, not fragile enough to be protected. I started working when I was 18, bought a used Honda, and moved out the minute I saved enough for a deposit. No one asked if I was doing okay. No one even remembered my birthday that year, except for an older coworker at the bookstore where I worked part-time. Over time, I trained myself not to expect anything. When I called home, Mom would ask, so when are you bringing someone home to meet us? Dad would only mention that Jenna had gotten another raise, even though she changed jobs like most people change jackets. I'd just mumble an uh-huh and hang up. I had gotten used to living on the sidelines. Until Jenna announced she was getting married. When I received the invitation, I stayed neutral. No expectations, no resentment. I was still her sister. I would show up, dress respectfully, smile for photos, have a drink, and leave before the dancing started. What I didn't know was that this wedding, supposedly the happiest day of my sister's life, would be the moment I was pushed beyond the last boundary of being considered family. I should have seen it coming. When my mom called me, it wasn't to help me with hotel arrangements. It was to remind me not to wear anything that would outshine the bride. When Jenna sent over the bridesmaids list, my name wasn't there. Instead, it was filled with her old college roommate and high school best friends. I told myself, she probably just wants her closest girls by her side. But nothing could have prepared me for what actually happened that day. From the moment I stepped into the reception hall and saw the seating chart, I understood. This wasn't just favoritism. It was deliberate exclusion, more subtle and cruel than I'd imagined. It took me nearly 2 minutes to process what I was looking at. My name wasn't listed at any of the main tables. Not with our relatives, not with my parents. Eventually, a man in a black suit directed me to a tiny table placed near the entrance. Right next to the coat rack. A lone plastic chair draped in a wrinkled white cloth. No flowers, no menu, no one else assigned to sit there. I stood there quietly, not angry, just overwhelmed by the sinking realization that I wasn't truly invited. I was tolerated. Barely. Barely. A soft giggle echoed behind me. It was Taylor, Jenna's best friend, the same one who once called me the uptight older sister at a reunion. She glanced my way, rolled her eyes, and turned away, clearly amused. I clenched the place card in my hand and walked directly toward the bridal suite. On the way, I still tried to reason with myself. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it wasn't on purpose. But when I saw Jenna lounging on a velvet bench, laughing in a circle of friends, it became clear. She didn't care where I was seated. Jenna. My voice was calm but firm. She turned, her blonde curls pinned back with an expensive silver clip. Oh, Ruby! You made it? Her voice was light, like she was greeting a late-arriving waitress. I held up my place card. My seat is next to the coat rack. Jenna pressed her lips together like she'd just remembered something mildly inconvenient. Oh, right. There were some last-minute changes. The head tables were getting a little crowded. And I'm the one who got moved? I asked, keeping my tone even. Well, you didn't come with anyone. You're not in the bridal party. She shrugged. And you're not exactly close to our extended family. I figured you'd be more comfortable somewhere quieter. It felt like someone slapped me, not because of the seating, but because of how casually she dismissed it. Like I was a logistical nuisance they had to tuck away politely. Jenna, I'm your sister, I said, looking her straight in the eyes. Do you really think sticking me in the hallway is respectful? She let out a small laugh, not even pretending to be kind this time. You've been away for years, Ruby. You're not really part of this family anymore. I was just being logical. Logical, I repeated, bitterness tightening in my throat. That's when my mom appeared, clutching an ivory clutch and looking perfectly composed. Her face stiffened slightly when she saw me. Ruby, don't stir things up. This is Jenna's special day. I turned to her. You knew about my seat? She paused for a beat, then gave a short nod. I told Jenna you might feel hurt, but come on, you're grown now. Don't take it personally. Strangely, that's what stung the most. You're grown now. Don't take it personally. As if growing up meant forfeiting the right to be hurt. To be treated like family. I took a breath. So? Just because I live on my own and didn't bring a +1, I'm no longer considered family? My mom glanced at Jenna, then responded slowly. Ruby, families change. Everyone has a role, and today your role is to support the bride. I stood still. I didn't argue, because in that moment, nothing I could say would matter. Instead, something colder took its place. Clarity, sharp and quiet like metal against stone. They weren't careless. They had chosen to let me know. I don't belong here anymore. And there's one thing Jenna forgot. I'm still the only person in this family who knows exactly what's behind that white dress she's wearing. I walked out of the bridal suite with a heavy heart. Not angry, not hurt. It felt like a string inside me had just snapped. And I had no intention of tying it back together. When I returned to my forgotten table near the coat rack, I saw a woman I didn't recognize standing there, holding a glass of champagne, her eyes skimming over my name card. She turned toward me with a smile I couldn't quite call friendly. You must be Ruby. Her voice was soft, but sharp. I nodded cautiously. Yes, I'm the bride's sister. The woman nodded slightly, a glimmer of amusement in her eyes. I'm Barbara, the groom's mother. Jenna hasn't said much about you. Honestly, I thought Ruby was an old college friend. I didn't respond. She looked at me for another moment, then set her glass down right on the table next to the restroom, the spot no one wanted to linger near. Strange. A biological sister not seated with the main guests. Are you sure you're close to your family? A casual question laced with deliberate intent. I didn't need a second guess. She knew exactly what was going on. And she was enjoying it. I smiled calmly. I guess Jenna prioritized those she's closest to. Oh. She tilted her head. So her own sister doesn't count as close? That's when I realized Barbara didn't just wander by. She arrived at the perfect moment, in the perfect place, armed with the perfect words to push me one rung lower on the ladder my family had already built. And Jenna? My sister, who had just told me to my face that I was no longer family, had clearly shared a one-sided story. Enough for her future mother-in-law to look at me like a pitiful outsider, maybe even a joke. What a shame, Barbara continued, her tone still measured. In every wedding I've hosted or attended, those closest to the couple usually sit in the best spots. I chuckled, not hiding it anymore. Yeah, That's what I used to think too. She shrugged, her gaze slicing through me. But maybe this was the right call. Clearly, you're not the centerpiece. Just one sentence, a clean, cold cut. And in that moment, hearing this woman Jenna had been desperately trying to impress openly diminish me at her wedding, I knew. I had been placed exactly where they wanted me. Lower, quieter, easier to ignore. But then, I remembered the things Jenna had whispered on the phone at those little coffee meetups we used to have, just the two of us. How she once called Barbara the queen of control and admitted she was only putting up with her until the wedding's over so she could avoid drama. I tilted my head slightly, meeting Barbara's probing stare. Honestly, I'm a little surprised to see you being so friendly. Oh, Barbara blinked. Why is that? I shrugged. Jenna usually gets tense whenever she talks about you. Once, she even said, let me think. If she gives a speech at the wedding, I swear I'll walk out. That line stuck with me. Her hand holding the glass froze. Her smile shifted, less polished, more ice. I went on, my voice light, like commenting on the weather. She also said you were too controlling and that she was only tolerating it to avoid conflict in front of her fiancé. Barbara stared at me for a long moment. What did you just say? I tilted my head, feigning confusion. Oh, maybe I remembered it wrong. Anyway, that's between you two. I shouldn't get involved. The air between us turned thick. And in that moment, I saw something Jenna never wanted me to witness. The hurt in her mother-in-law's eyes. A woman who once seemed untouchable, now stood frozen, like someone who had just realized she'd been betrayed. I turned away, grabbed a glass of water from my sad little table, and walked toward the back of the hall. But unlike the first time I'd walked away in quiet resignation, this time, I carried a storm with me. When I returned to the reception hall, the music had shifted to a soft ballad. Glasses were full, and all eyes were turning toward the couple, who were preparing to begin the ceremony. I stood at the edge of the corridor, watching as Barbara, the woman who had mocked me just minutes earlier, now marched toward the podium with a face like stone. No smile, no grace. Just moments ago, she had taken pleasure in poking at me. Now, she was heading straight for her daughter, in-law-to-be, her eyes sharp as a blade. Jenna had just stepped out from backstage, gripping her white bouquet. She smiled and greeted guests on both sides, acting as if everything was perfect. But when she caught sight of Barbara's waiting glare, she paused mid-step. I didn't know what Barbara would say, but I knew this. She wasn't the kind to swallow humiliation easily, especially not the kind whispered behind her back and now laid bare in public. No one noticed me walking toward the podium. I didn't shout. I simply lifted my glass of orange juice to chest level, stood tall, and spoke. Excuse me, may I have a moment? The music softened. A few heads turned. Jenna spun around, her eyes darting to me, panic flickering beneath her flawless makeup. What are you doing? She hissed under her breath, still forcing a smile. I didn't look at her. I kept my gaze on Barbara, the woman standing completely still, both hands clenched in front of her. I think it's time to clear a few things up. I've heard too much, and now everything needs to be put back where it belongs. The air in the room froze. Mrs. Barbara, I turned toward her, keeping my tone steady. Jenna once said, you shouldn't wear a metallic dress today because it would outshine the bride. Isn't that right, Jenna? Jenna's face drained. Shut up, I continued. She also said that if you gave a speech at the wedding, she'd throw on the veil and walk out. A soft laugh rippled from the left side of the room. I saw one of the bridesmaids cover her mouth, eyes flickering between shock and amusement. Jenna, Barbara growled. What is this? Jenna stammered, her hands visibly trembling. No, it's not like that. I tilted my head. Not like that? Then what about when she said she'd tolerate you for a few more months and then find reasons to limit visits after the wedding? Or when she called you power-hungry enough to want to control the wine selection? Stop it! Jenna screamed, her face flushed deep red. But I wasn't done. Barbara, you don't have to believe me, but Jenna once said, word for word, I'd rather get married without a ceremony than let my mother-in-law give a boring speech that puts everyone to sleep. Whispers rippled across the room like a rising tide. The music had stopped entirely. All that remained was the sound of truth peeling away the perfect facade. My mother stood frozen in the far right corner, pale as paper. My father stared down at the floor, wishing to disappear. I scanned past them. The same people who'd told me not to make a scene, now left, without a place to hide. Barbara stepped forward, no longer angry, just visibly crushed. My daughter, she said slowly, eyes locked on Jenna like she was seeing her for the first time. So, this is how you speak about your new family? Jenna faltered. I didn't think she would... Oh. You didn't think your sister would be here? Or that someone would expose you in front of everyone? Barbara's voice wasn't loud, but it thundered through the now silent ballroom. Jenna turned toward me, her eyes no longer filled with anger, just pure hatred. You ruined everything. I met her stare calmly. No, Jenna, you did that all on your own. You just didn't think anyone would speak up. You made this up, Jenna shrieked, her high-pitched voice echoing across the hall. You twisted everything I said just to ruin my big day. I said nothing. I simply stood still, facing the crowd of guests who remained frozen, unsure whether to look away or keep watching this unexpected performance unfold. Barbara took a step back, her fists clenched. Made it up? So I imagined all those late-night calls? I hallucinated what you said about me and my family? Jenna rushed forward, trying to grab her hand, but Barbara pulled away sharply. I've poured time, money, and my name into this wedding, and what do I get? A daughter-in-law who talks behind my back, fakes politeness in public, and builds her entire image on lies? I didn't mean it that way, Jenna hissed, her face burning with a mix of panic and rage. She turned on me, her eyes lit with fury. Is this what you wanted, Ruby? For me to lose everything? For people to pity you? I kept my voice even. I said it because you've used people as props for too long. Today, your act finally ran out. At that moment, Reed, the groom, who had stood frozen in the chaos, finally spoke. Jenna, is it true? His voice wasn't loud, but it sliced through the discomfort like a blade. A hush fell again. No, Jenna shouted, shaking her head violently. Reed, you know me. I was just overwhelmed, okay? I didn't think what I said to Ruby would ever be turned against me. Reed frowned. So, you did say those things. I was just venting. I didn't mean anything bad about your mom. You know me, she pleaded, nearly clasping her hands together. Barbara let out a bitter laugh and turned toward my parents, who had remained silent the entire time, as if they weren't involved at all. And you too, she said clearly, her voice no longer courteous. This is what your parenting produced. Someone who lies, manipulates, and shifts blame onto the person who dared to speak the truth? My mom turned pale, shaking her head nervously. Barbara, I believe Jenna didn't mean any harm. Never fault her for being who she was. No harm? Barbara cut her off, voice rising. And yet, she didn't hesitate to use my family as a tool to maintain her image. What a masterpiece of double-faced living. My dad gently tugged at my mom's arm, signaling her to stop talking. But it was already too late. The entire energy in the room had shifted. A carefully orchestrated celebration had spiraled into full-blown disaster. Some guests were already standing. Others avoided eye contact with the bride, as if even looking at her was shameful now. Reed pulled his phone from his pocket, glanced at the screen, then looked up. Jenna, did you know my mom called me last night? Worried that you've never once reached out to her on your own? Jenna stayed silent, hands clasped tight. I thought you were just reserved, but after what I heard today, I'm not so sure anymore. That sentence hit Jenna like a brick. Her face drained of color, then flushed with anger. You're calling off the wedding? Over something my sister made up? Reed took a step back, his face tightening. I don't know who to believe anymore. But I do know I can't walk into a marriage built on secrets and two-faced words. Jenna looked around as if hoping someone, anyone, would step up and salvage what was left of her crumbling image. But everyone remained silent. She turned to me, her voice hissing through clenched teeth. You won. I looked her straight in the eye. No one won, Jenna. You just made yourself lose. I stood there for a while, in the middle of the reception hall, bathed in soft yellow light, surrounded by eyes pretending not to watch. No one called after me. No one stepped up to defend Jenna. The air hung heavy like forged iron, pressing down on every guest, as if every mask in the room had slipped out of place. I took a deep breath, then turned. No rush, no shame. I walked straight toward the gift table, draped in white near the stage, where Jenna and Reed had planned to stand and receive well wishes. My mother called out softly, Ruby, what are you doing? I didn't answer. She knew. Everyone in that ballroom knew. The small wooden box I'd brought that morning still sat neatly among the flashy gifts wrapped in silver ribbons. It wasn't the most expensive present, but I'd spent weeks choosing it, having their names and wedding date engraved on the glass. A gift that carried real meaning. A gesture from the heart. Before I was pushed aside like a stranger at someone else's dinner. I bent down, lifted the box with both hands, and turned to face Jenna. Her eyes widened. You can't be serious. I gently tightened my grip. You said I'm not family anymore. So, there's no reason to keep a gift from a stranger. Jenna's face turned crimson. You're so immature. Even now you have to cause a scene. I let out a soft laugh. Oh no, I'm just reclaiming a misdelivered package. Wouldn't want it triggering an allergic reaction in your married life. A few guests stifled laughter. Others sighed or shook their heads. But no one spoke up for Jenna. Not a single person. I turned to Reed. Good luck. He looked at me, then at the box, his eyes drifting into a place I couldn't quite read. But he said nothing, and to me that said enough. My mother stepped forward, her voice urgent. Ruby, don't make this worse. Just leave the gift and go, please. I didn't look at her. I simply stepped back, holding on to the one thing that had once symbolized my attempt to stay kind. I think everything's clear now, I said. I'm just following the rules this family has shown me. Not invited, not welcomed, not needed. Barbara stood near the champagne table, still watching me. And as I turned away, I caught something I'd never seen in all these years. A quiet nod of respect from a woman who once thought I didn't belong. I walked toward the doors, the sound of my heels echoing lightly against the stone floor. Each step peeled away a layer of something I'd carried for too long. Jenna's voice rang out behind me. You'll regret this. Keep going like this and you'll push everyone away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The last glimmer of chandelier light slid across the glass wall as the ballroom doors closed behind me. Outside, the air was cool. Not windy, just crisp enough to make the hem of my dress shift slightly as I clutched the box to my chest. My eyes didn't sting. I didn't need tears. There was only one quiet realization blooming in my chest, like I had just reclaimed something stolen from me long ago. Not a seat at the wedding, but my self-respect. The next morning, I woke up around 9 a.m., sunlight cutting through the curtains in my living room. My phone, face down on the table beside the sofa, buzzed in short, urgent bursts, the kind of frantic energy I didn't need to check to recognize. I picked it up. 16 missed calls, 9 voicemails, 22 text messages. From Mom, from Jenna, even from my aunt in Arizona, who only ever calls when her daughter's tuition is due. I didn't rush to read them. I brewed a cup of coffee slowly, then sat down and scrolled through the cascade of incoming messages. Mom, Ruby, what have you done? You ruined your sister's big day. Call me back right now. This isn't over. You call that sisterly love? Have you no shame? Jenna, I can't believe you actually did that. You made Reed doubt everything, all because you're jealous. You will apologize. You have to apologize. You think you're right. That's just sad. I leaned back in my chair, coffee in hand, sipping each mouthful like it was the only thing in the room that made sense anymore. Then, the final message came. From a name I hadn't expected. Dad. Call me when you can. Nothing urgent, just think you should know a few things. I hesitated a moment, then tapped call. He answered after the second ring. Hey, kid, he said, his voice lower than usual. I'm listening, I replied shortly. There was a pause. Then he sighed. I wasn't planning to get involved, but yesterday, I couldn't just ignore it. I stayed quiet, letting him continue. You might think I've been silent because I didn't care, but the truth is, I've just gotten used to letting your mom and Jenna make all the decisions. I thought staying quiet would keep the peace. But after yesterday, there was no way to pretend anymore. I gently set my cup down. So, what happened after I left? Dad replied. Reed didn't go back to the hotel with Jenna. He drove alone to his mother's house. According to Barbara, they argued all night. I closed my eyes, not out of satisfaction, but weariness. Years of silent hurt, all culminating in a single explosive night. What about Jenna's mother-in-law? Barbara called your mom at 7 a.m. this morning. She made it clear she doesn't want Jenna involved with their family anymore. Said Jenna's dishonest and doesn't deserve to be her son's wife. I leaned my head back against the chair. And how did Mom react? She blamed you, of course. I let out a soft chuckle. Not surprising. Dad hesitated. Jenna? Still won't admit she's wrong. She thinks you're the one who escalated everything. And believe it or not, she wants you to call Barbara and say it was all just a misunderstanding. I was silent for a few seconds, then replied slowly, I won't apologize for telling the truth. I know, he said, exhaling gently, and honestly, I don't think you should. I turned toward the window. The sun was already high, casting light on the shrubs swaying just beyond the glass. I didn't feel joy, but I did feel a calm certainty, as if I had finally stood where I was always meant to stand. You know, Ruby, Dad added, maybe for the first time, I actually understand why you've kept your distance from this family. I didn't respond right away, but in my mind, the truth had never been clearer. In the end, it wasn't me who chose to leave them. They had pushed me away, again and again, quietly, deliberately. And now, they were simply dealing with the consequences of what they sowed. Are you okay? Dad asked softly. I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. I'm okay. Truly. Ruby's story is a powerful reminder that silence isn't always noble. Sometimes, it's just what allows the wrong people to keep stepping over you. In real life, there comes a time when you have to speak up. Not to win, but to protect yourself from being trampled again. Truth may cause a collapse, but sometimes, collapse is the only way to break free from relationships that exist only because of falsehood. Courage isn't about fighting. It's about knowing when to walk away and never look back. What do you think about how Ruby chose to confront the truth and her family boundaries? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more deeply emotional, real-life stories and valuable lessons on family.